We were in the bottom of a huge quarry. I mean, these trucks were giant. There was coal and rocks everywhere. There were vehicles that dwarfed the size of my house. And I looked at the comparison of that pickup in front of us next to that 450-ton truck, and that's when I pointed out the importance of perspective.
The Fresh Church Podcast.
Welcome to this week's episode of the Fresh Church Podcast. Hi, I'm Pastor Tony. On today's show, I am curious how you view the family ministry pipeline in your church. How does your preschool point towards the middle school program? Do you understand the view of a parent as you think about your kids and student ministry? How well do you know the other ministries of your church and how it all ties together? Do you have a pipeline from birth to college? Let's talk family ministry. So this summer, I visited my family in Montana, and while we were there, my cousin, who lives just across the border in British Columbia, Canada, invited us up. He's a foreman at the biggest coal mine in the world. He offered to give us a tour of the place and to get to see the world's biggest dump truck. Awesome, right? We went across the border, drove about an hour north. We expected to be able to look down from an observation deck into a quarry, maybe see a couple giant dump trucks on display, maybe a rock museum with historical pictures. I mean, we had no idea what we were getting into. So as we drove up the canyon, we stopped at the front gate and then switched vehicles into his work truck, a King Cab F-150. We then drove for the next 4 hours experiencing all of the aspects of this mine. It wasn't a little quarry that we were pulling some rocks out of. The mountains on both sides of us were being completely mined for coal. They were removing all of the rock from this place and making a new mountain beside it. There were 5 different quarries that we drove down into, not an observation deck. We literally drove down hundreds of feet into the bottom of these mines. And we watched these giant shovels. We grab 120 tons of rock and drop them into the back of a dump truck. 3 or 4 times, depending on the size of the truck. We were literally parked beside a dump truck that held 450 tons of rock. Our truck went up about halfway up the tire. Oh, and each tire on that bad boy was worth $77,000. I mean, these were multi-million-dollar pieces of equipment right there in front of us. We went down into a hole and back up again, and then down into another hole. I mean, we drove from one mountain to the other mountain to see where they were depositing the unused rocks. Then we crossed the valley and did the same thing on the mountain on the other side. I mean, this place was huge. We felt so small following these beasts and seeing the depths that we were at. I mean, when you would look down inside and see the bottom, and there's just little trucks down there. And then you would drive down there and be looking up at these giant vehicles. At one point, I realized the power of perspective. A little ways ahead of us was one of those giant dump trucks with a different F-150 work truck driving behind it. I realized that pickup was the same size as ours. I literally could look over the cab of the truck and still see the underside of the dump truck, seeing this pickup pass the truck and not even come up halfway on the tire. I mean, it was tiny, and we were in the same size vehicle. Our perspective was different. In the same way, family ministry has a different perspective than kids or student ministry. Let me explain. You see, I'm in the nursery, and I'm making sure the diapers are changed and the babies are held and trying not to call the parents unless I absolutely have to. Or maybe I'm in preschool and hoping that I can keep the kids' attention while providing lessons and snacks and songs and playtime. And just getting Billy to share is a miracle in and of itself. We move into elementary, and I'm dealing with attention spans. Kids want to learn, but can be distracted so easily. They're still fun at this age, and their imaginations are running wild. Take a minute to talk to a kid, and it's amazing what they share. Parents give a little more freedom to their kids at this age, and I have to make sure I'm actually saying hi as I quickly drop them off and pick them up at the end of service. Middle school. Back to snack time again. but this time it's cereal, donuts, popcorn, bacon. And all of that helps the smell in the room of a pre-adolescent kid, right? Some kids wander, some engage, some have too much energy, some have none. You are trained to understand them, but they don't even understand themselves. And parents are nowhere to be seen. High school. Now we're working harder to get them to even attend. Some have their own transportation. Some don't. Some have social groups they connect with. Some hide on their phones. Everything costs too much, or we aren't doing enough things. You will never be cool enough, and someone just needs to talk through another existential crisis. Then there's college. See ya. Good luck. By the way, we have incredible online courses to help you with each of these age groups. Our Innovate Labs break down each of these age groups with an hour-long training on each one for nursery, preschool, elementary, and students. This is one of our favorite courses with practical tips for every single element. Whether you've been in ministry for years or brand new, make sure you check these courses out. We've never had anybody complain that they didn't get their money's worth out of them. So you can check them out at www.freshman.org, and I promise you'll not regret it. But we're not going to be talking about the individual classes today. Remember, we're talking about perspective. Over the years, I've served in lots of different roles on staff in the local church. I've been an elementary pastor, a kids pastor, a youth or student pastor, a family pastor, an executive pastor. In each step, my perspective changed a little bit. You see, family ministry is not about the individual classrooms. It's about the overall family experience. And I can drill into each one of these rooms and give you all kinds of specifics, but it's important to also step back and look at the overall perspective. What's happening in the family during this time? So let me help you for a minute. Let's step back and remove the title you currently have. Let's stop focusing on the craft, the game, the food, the experience in your space. Let's look at the family. A young couple, excited about what their future holds. They find out they're going to have a baby. Maybe they were planning for it. Maybe they weren't. Either way, they're filled with excitement and yet still completely freaked out. 9 months and they have to figure this whole thing out. Deal with parents, create a nursery. There's physical changes, financial strain. They now see other people with babies, other people with kids, and they realize they're moving from that happy married couple to parents. They have entered your family ministry, yet you've not even engaged them yet. So let me ask you, what are you doing for expecting parents? Do you have an orientation for them? Do you do a quarterly meet and greet to let them hear and see what the nursery experience is going to be like at your church? I promise you, they have visited the hospital where their baby is going to be born. They've seen what those facilities look like. Have they visited the part of the church where their baby's going to be hanging out? You don't even know who they are because, you're too busy in the nursery taking care of the current babies. As a family ministry, there has to be a starting point that points them in your direction before they even have the child. And you can explain what will happen once the baby's born, like what check-in looks like, what happens in class, what child dedication looks like if you do that in your church, what serving looks like, because all of our parents serve. Then the baby comes. Does your church send flowers? They should. Maybe even a visitation from yourself or someone in your ministry. And we get them in the nursery. Now, please do not go into, let's give you a break from the baby routine. This is a horrible habit to get parents into. Instead, that's where you get to connect with other parents as you serve once a month in our nursery, both moms and dads. Oh, and also the grandparents, by the way, that's an easy sell. Grandparents come hang out with the new baby. Yes, they're there. How can we help these young parents? Giving them tools, ideas, people to connect with, letting them know that other families are going through the same challenges that they are going through. I had a church once where we had a nurse, and our church had a couple of them attending who would walk through and just be available in case parents had questions. They could unofficially offer advice and recommendations. The nurses loved it because it was interactive versus what they had to do in their daily routines at work. And they were everyone's favorite people. And parents appreciated that we cared. that we had someone there for them. Preschool, and kids are changing. Most mommies are more connected during this age, and dads start to back off a bit. Honestly, because you have to pay a little closer attention to understand what these little things are trying to communicate. Help dads realize that their kids aren't the only ones who speak in a foreign language and make messes. Dads often do better with this age group when there are several kids playing with the dad and helping them feel like, man, that dad is the most popular guy in the room. Moms enjoy sharing ideas with other moms and just watching their kids play versus having to be so needy and involved all of the time. Meanwhile, parents are trying to figure out what to do with kids in this phase. I mean, how do you teach them, set them up for success, build for the future, and all of this before they start kindergarten? This is a great time for small groups and parenting classes. Parents are more likely to connect with other families during this season of their kids' lives. This is also a great time to introduce church grandparents. Now, what do I mean by that? Those are older couples in the church who will adopt families, if you will, and make themselves available to babysit or maybe surprise them with a meal or a box of groceries or extra toys at Christmas. Most of our families don't have grandparents living nearby, and most grandparents don't have grandkids nearby. This is a great time to connect them together. So if one of our goals is to make families part of the church family, well, then now is certainly the time to do that. We move into elementary, and often parents start to back off. They sense that kids are getting more independent. They also feel like they're getting to catch their breath. I mean, they don't have to watch them 24/7. They get to be a human again. But we start to lose them on the volunteer level as well. Keep them involved, leading small groups or participating in the service. They're showing their kids what it means to be a leader. Dads helping with stage design, moms helping with special events, keeping them involved. Not only does it help with ratios, but it helps set the family up for success as they transition into middle school. Now, dads during this season, they are really looking for connections. I mean, family ministry becomes about barbecues and chili feeds with parents. Kids play in the backyard while parents talk. This is the best season for small groups, whether they're Bible study small groups or just hang out and build community groups. Their high school days are over for these parents. There's no more college buddies. They're lonely. Help them build community. Don't miss out on this opportunity. Then this crazy thing starts to happen. Puberty. Kids start to act up a bit. They're declaring their independence. They smell funny. They don't want to do anything with anybody else, and definitely don't want you as the parent to be there. At least that's what they keep saying. Parents are just as confused. This beautiful child of theirs is starting to remind them of all the things they don't like about their spouse. Communication has turned into grunts, and there's never enough food in the house. What do we do? Well, as a church, have events for these kids. Realize school is getting busier, but this age needs activities. They want to be grown up, even though they have no idea what that means. As families, parents don't feel like they belong anymore with these kids. But this is one of the most important times to engage these families. Statistics show over and over again the value of parents staying connected during this age. If you as a ministry leader don't provide that at church, they'll find it in school and community activities, and you'll lose the family. Keep parents involved. Just allow their roles to change if needed. Have them bring and serve food. Have them host events at their house. Have them chaperone and engage kids at the water park or putt-putt course. Have them play with the kids, hang out with them. Have them pay for things. Kids love that too. Let them be a part of the story. And even if they're not completely connected with their kids, they can connect with other kids who are looking for adult support. Then high school happens, and there's no parents to be found. Everything that I just said about middle school is even more important now. Beyond that, parents are great at planning things because it's one of the only ways they still feel like they can be a part of the experience for their child. You see these parents see this little baby that they were just holding a few years ago, getting ready to leave them forever. And that has them scared to death. So they're hanging on as long as they can. If you ask for help, they'll assist. fundraising, missions trips, open houses, activities, drivers, chaperones, church events, anything where they can watch their child from 10 feet away and still be part of their lives. You can still use young adult leaders and keep the parents involved. The other kids need that parent there to talk to from time to time. The other parents need your kid to see that everything's going to be okay. The other families need your family to be there and support each other. Times are changing. The church needs to be involved here, or they lose out and become part of the past instead of the present. And keep in mind that families are balancing calendars and schedules with school, sports, college prep, and everything else that's going on. Don't try to compete with graduation. Celebrate along with them. What if that adopted grandparent from preschool is still there celebrating along the way? Man, that's a double win for your church. And don't forget that these little ones are now headed out of the home, maybe off to college, off to work, or maybe not on their own. Maybe they'll still be living at home for a while. Well, what do you do to support the family during this season when parents are trying to figure out what to do now? Their kids are making permanent future decisions without always asking mom and dad. Be there for the parents now and make yourself available for prayer, encouragement, and sometimes just giving a shoulder to cry on. Family ministry. So what are some practical things that you can do? I'm going to run through a list of ideas. Don't try to do all of them, but maybe one of these will help you as you work through the perspective of a family ministry pipeline to minister to both the kids and the parents at every age. So here are some ideas. Number one, family-centered service projects. So this can be like a community outreach where you organize family-friendly service projects like food drives, community cleanups, visiting nursing homes, where the whole family gets to participate together right there in your community on a Saturday or on an evening. Or what about a missions trip? Maybe a short-term missions trip that's suitable for families, allowing them to serve together. You know, sometimes for that middle school or high schooler getting out of town, even if it's only 30 minutes away, could cause them to be almost like a completely different person. They don't have peers around them. For that younger kid, just going 30 minutes away, they feel like they've gone to Africa and back. It lets them experience what it means to be the hands and feet of Jesus. Number two, intergenerational worship from time to time. So that's like having a family worship service where you design services where the families can actually worship together. And I encourage doing this from time to time, where each family member plays a role. Maybe there's scripture reading or leading in prayers or kids participating in the choir or the worship team, letting them all get involved in that family style service, letting the church know, hey, there's kids here, there's students here, and they're important. Letting the kids and students know they're part of the big church. What about interactive sermons? Offering sermon series that include interactive elements where families can participate together, either during or after the service. Maybe a family prayer time afterwards or a devotional for the family. Maybe you use a family up on stage as part of that sermon and make it interactive for them. Number three, family ministry programs. So that's having family small groups. Small groups are Bible studies for families to attend together. And that can be based on a season of life, not necessarily age, but hey, if you've got kids who are in preschool, this is a small group for you. Why? The kids can play together while you're doing the small group. Or you've got kids in junior high, we've got a small group for you. What if it's a family small group? The whole family is going to do the small group together. We're going to learn together. We're going to develop together. Especially those kids are elementary and even high school, they'll connect on that aspect. Let's look at this. Family retreats. Maybe plan a church retreat that caters to families. I mean, we send kids away to kids camp and youth camps, but what about a family camp? Have you been to one of those lately? My family does it every year and we love it. You can offer activities and sessions that nurture both spiritual growth and family bonding. And it can be a simple weekend or a couple nights away. It doesn't have to be a big deal, but make sure the entire family is present and there's things for them to do. Number four, volunteer opportunities for all ages. Man, Sunday school, kids ministry, youth ministry, student ministry. Encourage families to volunteer together in teaching and supporting these programs. So if you've got a high schooler, man, have the high schooler and their parents serve in the preschool room or elementary room or nursery. I love it when I see kids and their parents serving together. What a difference that makes. Or maybe they've got a younger sibling that can come hang out and be the mascot at the youth event. Sometimes that can be fun, sometimes weird, but you can have an enjoyable time with that. What about hospitality teams? Families can serve as greeters, ushers, or on a hospitality team together. I visited a church just 2 weeks ago where grandpa and granddaughter were welcoming people as they came in. It was so neat to see that generational gap, loving from both different age aspects. It's one of those things that made me go, yeah, family is important in this church. Number 5, skill-based ministry. That's talent sharing. Inviting families to share their skills like music, cooking, or carpentry in ministry settings. And sometimes this was great on a Wednesday night where, hey, we're going to come together and we'll learn how to go camping, or we're going to learn how to make something. And you create that experience for the whole family to come and learn together. Maybe bring in a chef and have the whole family do a cooking night. A school or a library might do something like that. Why doesn't your church do that? What about crafting together? Organize events where families can create items like care packages, handmade cards, or decorations. We had a church where our seniors used to write cards at Christmas time for all of the missionaries. So we had our kids come in, preferably grandkids come in, and help those seniors write the cards, lick the envelopes, stuff them inside, helping them with all those aspects. It became a generational experience. Number 6, family discipleship. Parenting workshops. Offer workshops and resources for parents on how to lead their families spiritually, integrating faith into daily life. And that can be done as a Sunday school class, or it can be done as a once a quarter event or a once a year event. Bring in a guest speaker. Bring us in. I would love to come to your church and share about some of the challenges of parenting and help your parents get going strong. That can be a full weekend, Sunday morning, Sunday night, whatever your church needs. Provide different opportunities. Realize not everybody's available on a Sunday morning. Provide those parenting workshops to let your parents know they're important to you. Or additionally, you could do devotional guides. You can provide families with devotional material they can use together at home, aligning, of course, with what you're teaching or what your church stands for. But let the family have that time together and give them the resources, because most parents won't do it without it. Number 7, mentorship programs. So like adopt a family. Pair up younger families with older, more experienced families in the church for mentoring, offering guidance about spiritual growth and life challenges. And you heard me mention this before. I believe this is really an important thing, especially if you're wanting to bring the family to become part of the church family, is you get those different generations within your church together. Grandparents and uncles and aunts with these young families. And to be honest, most families don't live near their grandparents. And most grandparents don't live near their grandkids. So connect these families together. Let them begin to build relationship together through this time, to help each other out, to mentor each other, to grow through this aspect, to make your church become one big family. Number 8, celebrating milestones together. That's a rite of passage, if you will. Celebrate important spiritual milestones together, such as baptisms, confirmations, or salvations involving the whole family. And these are family celebrations. This is time when the whole family can come together and be excited about what's happening in the spiritual formation of their kids at every age along the way. So make sure there's something fun like a family Sunday or a faith in the family days where families can celebrate these special events. Do something afterwards where the family can hang out. To be honest, if we're going to do something as a family and celebrate a graduation or celebrate an award ceremony in school, we probably go eat afterwards. So let's eat at the church. Let's hang out and build those relationships. And then number 9, communication and feedback. And this can be tricky for some churches when we're talking about like family councils or family committees. In some churches, there's too much control that happens in these, and committees are telling staff what to do. In other churches, staffs are so afraid of being told what to do that they refuse to have committees or councils or anything like that. There needs to be a place in the middle where this can happen, where you can establish a family ministry group that includes representatives from different age groups to ensure that the needs and ideas of the family are heard, both parents and kids. In that, you can find out what's working, what's not working. And in the midst of it, always be willing to take advice, but realize that you don't necessarily have to implement the advice they're giving. Beyond that, if you've got influencers on the team, as you're talking, you get to share your heart as well. And pretty soon they're communicating to others the reason why you're doing things. Get some regular feedback. Well, how do you do that? I ask that. How do you do surveys? How do you ask parents about things? Well, here's one of the best ways you can do it. Sit down and have something to drink, coffee, have ice cream together, do dinner together, spend time talking together over food. Don't just do a check the box, tell me what we're doing right, tell me what we're doing wrong. Talk to them, spend time together. And as you're sitting there across the table, building relationships, you can find out what's working and what isn't working, with a heart of love in the midst of it. So these are just a few ideas. Ask what other churches are doing. Find out what schools or community groups in your areas are doing and create your own version of it. Keep engaging the family all the way through. And just real quick, a bonus aspect, remember that you're onboarding parents at every part of this process, at every phase. So constantly be recruiting, constantly involve parents and move parents up with their kids. When their kids go from preschool to elementary, send the parents up with them. You know what? I always find it interesting that the more that you engage family, the more your kids' ministry grows, the more your youth ministry grows, the more your church grows. Because when you make family ministry a priority, everything grows along the way. Hey, this is Pastor Tony reminding you, keep your ministry fresh.